Hello, everyone. Welcome to Full-on, your Fulham-centric football podcast. I'm here today for our Leeds review. It's AJ. How you doing, mate?
All good, all good. And yourself?
Yeah, good. Good. Happy with the first 3 points of the season, but we'll discuss that in a minute, obviously. Drew, how you doing, mate?
I'm doing well, my friend. Good to see you both.
Yeah, good
Thank
to
you.
see you. Nice and refreshed today. Probably napped for the first half of yesterday's game, but let's get into it. Really, there's it's not loads to talk about in terms of actual action in the game. Not a lot really happened. The first half for me was probably one of the most boring 45 minutes of football that I've ever watched back ever. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the game yesterday, or fortunately, in some cases, I watched the full 90 minutes back this morning and it was terrible. I don't know how everyone was dealing with it in the game. Let's start though and talk about the starting lineup. We know that we were expecting some changes, but we weren't really expecting new boys in. AJ, I always ask this question about with the lineups. Were you shocked by the lineup? Were you happy with the lineup? Was there anything you would personally want to change about it?
Um, as much as he did a decent job yesterday, I still don't want to see Cess at left back again. Like, I get he works well with the overlap, and it might be different when we see him and Kevin or what have you. But if his entire purpose of being back at Fulham is to play second fiddle left back to Robinson, it's unfortunately a waste of his talents because I think he's a terrific forward player and can offer us so much in those forward positions. And it's a shame, really, just to see him wasted at left back. Outside of outside of Cess playing cover for our injuries, I think it's pretty much everything we expected it to be. Um, it was a shame to see a Wobie, but we knew he wasn't going to be dropped until he did something wrong.
Yeah, I think it's a frustrating one, really. It's one of those ones we know that the new players coming in are probably not had enough time to sort of integrate enough to play. You know, everyone was baying for Kevin to come on by the time he actually did, and he was a real game changer again. We'll talk about it. Drew, first question obviously is about the first half yesterday, right? It was complete. It was so turgid. It was ridiculous. I think the only real action in the half came from like Longstaff right at the end of the half when he managed to clip the bar with quite a good shot, but obviously being tipped on by Leno. But nothing really happened in that first half of note for either team. It really lacked quality. It really wasn't great football to watch. How did you feel about it? Like, what felt like was missing from our end during that first half for you?
Well, I missed the beginning of the first half because what was missing was organisation from the club. Because for all the Leeds fans that travelled so far yesterday and the Fulham fans trying to get to the game, there was horrific signal problems on the district line and there was traffic on the A3. There were literally thousands of people sitting outside the ground at 3 o'clock. One queue for the turnstiles was for checking bags. I mean, talk about pee up in a brewery. It was shambolic. It was shambolic. But I don't want to go off at a tangent, and I'm sure we'll talk about the organisation or lack thereof at the club, but the inability to put the game back 15 minutes when there was clear congestion, traffic delays is just what can you say? But in terms of the starting lineup, disappointing. I'm not going to revisit the points that AJ's made because he's made them very eloquently. Um, for as good as Iwobi was at Chelsea, I cannot for the life of me understand what Silva saw in his performance to merit keeping him on past the halfway stages yesterday. I mean, I really can't. And I think I think I sent a message to you boys about how unstimulating the first half was. I mean, it was just. I mean, in the preview show, I mean, I didn't think Leeds were going to score a lot, but I thought we'd score three. But our Matt said that if it could be a complete disaster if our attitude wasn't right. And I can't even begin. It has to be attitude, because Leeds worked hard, but there wasn't enough there to trouble us. But we were just morose. It really was, Ash. It was flat. Yeah, it was boring. It was boring. It was slow. It was predictable. That's as much as I can say about the first half.
Yeah, Marco turned around and said at the end of the game that we came out with our attitude a bit incorrect for the game. Like, you could tell the players weren't quite like. Now, for me, I've got a couple of problems with that, in the sense of, one, you're the man who set them up, right? You're the manager, so if their attitude's wrong, do something about it. Like, second half, we came out the exact same way, almost conceded straight away in the second half. Nothing had really changed our end. Like, there was no real change in emphasis, no change in formation, no change in structure. We're lucky that Leeds don't really have many options off the bench really to change what they were doing. Otherwise, we might have had a problem with them. They just were just sort of doing the same thing over and over again because it's all they really could do. But we were just letting them. The 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 inability to have anybody on the pitch who's aware enough to go, lads, someone needs to take the ball by the arms and change something here, is really frustrating. But one of the biggest problems for me on yesterday during the game is something that AJ spoke about on Friday when we did our match preview, and that's Lukic and Berger, and sometimes needing to have a bit of a different option with those two, because together they when in games like this, when you want to take the game to the opposition, it's like you're setting yourself up to be really relaxed and sat back for no reason. AJ, how did you feel it went with both of them on the pitch? I'm not saying either of them play badly, by the way. I'm just saying that, clearly that's where the positional changes need to happen during the game for us to sort of change what we were doing on Saturday. And it just felt like it was never going to change.
I mean, I'll take the credit, but I certainly didn't say that because I wasn't in the preview. But
Okay. There you go. Sorry.
But absolutely, it's whoever did say it, credit to them, because it's a very fair assessment. They both seem to have a tendency to cover the same sort of positional space and do the same sorts of things, which seems a bit counterproductive. Against teams like Leeds, you could potentially just have one of them do it and have a more offensive option in front of them. That, or change the instructions and allow someone like Lukic or Berge to bomb forward a bit more, knowing that the other is more than capable in games like this to cover the space, especially when players like Tete are going to just absolutely bully forwards in games like this anyway. So it's a bit of a shame to see us leading both of those in the same manner as we do in these big fixtures where we need both of them to sit, because Lukic has a brilliant tendency of finding space in and around the box. He hasn't scored much from it, but he often drags players away, opening up space for others, which is something you don't see very often from many players, and we saw quite a lot into the late half, the late parts of the second half. Once Kevin was on the pitch, it seemed like every time Kevin did something clever with the ball, the player who almost got there was Lukic until subsequently. Well, we'll get into that.
Look, I hate to be a broken drum. We moaned about it loads last season. It's really odd as a Fulham fan moaning about substitutions, especially when you consider the fact that, if you talk about Fulham subs, the only stat people to throw at you is the fact that we've now scored 19 goals in the last season and a bit from substitutions. But some of Marco's subs are so frustrating because they don't do anything to change what we're trying to do while we're playing. Even the first set of subs we made yesterday were, taking off Harry Wilson for Adama Traore and taking off Josh King to bring on Emil Smith-Rowe. What's that changing? That's not changing anything. It doesn't change any of the emphasis on the wing. All it does is put someone faster on the wing, but he has a way worse end product than Harry Wilson does. And changing ESR for Josh King, I get it if it's working and you want a similar-ish player to keep battering and keep going. But they're quite similar, those two, as players, and it's not going to change the way that the game's going. And then you look at the second set of substitutions that we make, where we bring on Kevin in the 76th minute, and that completely changes the game, right? That is the touch paper for the whole game, and it's really frustrating when you're looking at two Premier League teams play, and you have to wait for a 76-minute substitution for the game to look like it's even remotely being played at a pace that's Premier League level. Drew, you saw him firsthand yesterday. How good does Kevin look? How comfortable did he already look like to be as a player? Because he's getting plaudits all over the place from Fulham fans who have seen him like he's the second coming of the Messiah. But just how good did he look?
Just to cycle back a bit on a couple of points you made, Ash, about the first couple of substitutions. I think you're being a little bit harsh on Traore there. The reason being is this: Wilson is very left-footed, and one of the problems that we have playing Iwobi and Wilson is Wilson's left-footed, Iwobi's right-footed, so neither of them are going to stretch a defence horizontally. Yeah. One thing that did happen when Traore came on is it started to spread out the Leeds defence, because they had to take into account his pace and take into account the fact he had a right foot. Yeah. So that moved the defence over towards him. So when Kevin did arrive, who is an orthodox winger, he had more space to operate in. But your underlying point about substitutions, Ash, is bang on. It was quite clear where I sit, as our regular viewers will know, I sit on the halfway line at the Johnny Haynes stand. Please don't come and beat me up. I sit and everyone around me, without fail, from about, I'm reckoning, AJ, probably about 50 minutes. 50 minutes had clicked. They were still watching the same 45 minutes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing had changed. Nothing had changed. And, there was calls from the Johnny Haynes. I mean, Silver wouldn't have heard it. Calls directly to Silver to change things up. And as you've already alluded to, against teams like Leeds, and I'm not in any way, shape or form disrespecting Leeds, I thought they were well organised, they were well drilled, they worked incredibly hard, but they just don't have the options. And when you look at the benches, Ash, and I know you're quite right, everyone wants to talk about the goals that we scored from the bench, but we actually looked like we had a Premier League bench, and they simply didn't. But the substitutions, I mean, I had no problem with ESR. I thought he was fine when he came on. I thought that Josh's head, bless him, started to drop simply because he was being affected by the malaise of the senior pros around him, in my view. But bringing Traore on forced Leeds to take into account the fact that he would go to the byline, he would stretch them horizontally. But when Kevin came on, I mean, we're looking at something special. Put it this way, for any Fulham fans that didn't make the game, the consensus of opinion among a lot of Fulham fans is enjoy him for a season, because he will be going for about 100 million next summer if he carries on playing like that. He's a champion. He, on the basis of that, and I don't want to get hyperbolic, yeah, and I saw Cristiano Ronaldo's debut at Man U, and you would never in a million years have believed he was going to turn into, a Ballon d'Or winner. But from what I saw of Kevin, yeah, he was pretty special. And the good thing about him was he didn't seem to be physically intimidated, because you're always quite worried, aren't you? You have all the skill in the world, but if you're not physically up to it, especially in the English Premier League, you're gonna get bullied about. But he didn't. He got clattered and he got up. He's exciting. He's proper exciting. And to have him on one side and Traore on the other, and sorry, I don't mean to go on, but you all know that I love speed. I like explosive pace, and I've bored you two boys to death with my complaints about the fact that we've only got Robinson, who's a real burner. But when you have got that sort of pace in your team, it does change things for you. And the balance was so much better. And I genuinely think having an orthodox right winger created space for Kevin, who was sublime. He was everything we hoped he'd be.
Something I'd like to add, if I may, what I notice
What you
is
want?
what I mean is something I noticed about Kevin is although he is very much right-footed and very much a Marco Silva type of winger that will like to cut in, he was not afraid to go towards the byline and use his left foot either.
That is massively important. That is one of the things I noticed. Because with Iwobi, it's so easy. I mean, Ash, you've made this point a few times. It's because I think it's you, Ash. Forgive me if I've got this wrong. About our counterattacks. You know how we lose momentum because we have to check back in. You know, we can't just steam down the line. And AJ's quite right. It's something that I actually noticed because I wasn't quite sure. I got to be honest, AJ, watching Kevin, I wasn't quite sure which was his dominant foot. I mean, he was that good
until that very Willian-esque 1-2 shot from the edge of the box.
Yeah. I accept that. He's more explosive than Willian. More explosive than Willian.
He's young Willian. He's young Willian.
Yeah. I'm not. Willian was great in a phone box, wasn't he? Though. I mean, his close control was exceptional. I mean, he really was. And I think to be fair to Kevin, I mean, he's got great skill, but I think he's a better athlete. I think he's a more explosive athlete.
Yeah. I think that's
fair. I think what'll be interesting is when we manage to get Chuck Weasley on as well, who again, me moaning about Adama Traore's end product is just the only moan I have about him. Everything else about him I respect as a footballer, you know, and his pace does cause problems because it does succeed, it stretches defences. But Chuck Weasley is also a player who has really good ball control and is fast. If we can get both of them, Kevin and him, on either wing with the speed and the ability to go, and by any chance we can get Robertson in on that deal too, we could be really dangerous going forward. And I mean really dangerous going forward. It's been a long time since we've said that. You know, what was really good for me yesterday about Kevin wasn't just that the intent was always to go forward. He always wanted to go forward. Every pass he made was looking to go forward. Even the ones he made sideways was because he wanted to make the run on. You know, the shot he had, excellent. The couple of crosses he had were brilliant. You know, he was rather unlucky, the one he had where Sasha Lukic just couldn't quite get the ball on the turn and volley. Probably ambitious that is Sasha Lukic there, but it's one of those things, right, that you could see just in the 20 minutes that he played that he's got something that we haven't had in a long time, and long may it continue. Let's just finish the roundup of the game, because obviously he completely changes the game in the sense of...
Sorry, Ash, can I just ask you a question? Because I'm quite, just on the basis of what you've just said, yeah? I agree with you. I'd like to see those two on the wing. But do you think Marco Silva is going to drop Iwobi to play that personnel?
I think we spoke about this on our preview show about him. The what I actually want to see is I want to see this, having those two on the wing means that he knows he can drop Iwobi on the inside, and we can bring Iwobi into the middle of the pitch in the sense of he can do his thing, but not be the player out wide doing it, because we know Iwobi can play in that, you know, in that 10 position, that 8 position. Sometimes he can do it really, really well. But I don't want to see an over-reliance on Iwobi. One of the biggest problems with Iwobi is last year he was dead on his feet by February, and we mean dead on his feet. Like literally the whole of the rest of the season, he looked like he was constantly playing in molasses. So like he was just so bad because of it. And I think it'll extend his ability to look good, because we know how good Iwobi can be on his day, but he needs to be fresh for that to happen. And I'm just hoping that's what we're actually going to see, is that it means that it will let Silva bring Iwobi in and then have Kevin on his shoulder rather than being the one who's on somebody else's shoulder. And that might just be the excuse that we need to, you know, in games like this, not play Berg and Lukic at the same time and be a bit more free in midfield going forward. But, you know, we have to wait and see what happens there, because that's changing the philosophy of football that we haven't seen Marco Silva play in the 5 years he's been at Fulham. So, you know, who knows? Let's just finish talking about the game quickly. Obviously, don't even know how to explain the own goal. Other than it's probably the greatest header I've ever seen. Pinpoint top corner header, fantastic. Spare a thought for the lad. I'm so sorry that he's like. It's one of those own goals where after celebrating it, if you're a Leeds fan, you are devastated. If you're a Fulham fan, you're elated that we've managed to get the win. If you support any other team, you're laughing your head off because of how funny it is. Like I don't even like. All I can say is, in his defence, it looks like Tom Kenny's going to win the header and then just misses it. And then his defender in front of him also looks like he might win it and then just misses it. It looks like sort of hits him on the forehead. He's got no control over it. But Cardalo, considering the fact I said it on Friday in the warm up to this in the preview that it could be one of those games where Cardalo, who hasn't played much Premier League football, could look really, really good. And I thought he had a decent game. And it was almost like that was the only way we were going to score. It's so unfortunate. I don't, Drew, from your positional point of view at the cottage, was it obvious what had happened? I can't even work. My cousin wasn't even who was at the game in the Hammersmith, wasn't even really aware what had happened. It was just sort of a bit odd.
I thought it was an own goal. I thought it was an own goal. It was a great ball in. It's nice to have a player now that can beat the first man with corners. You know that I thought the Fulham fans were going to start cheering that myself. I was aware. Yeah, I thought it was an own goal, but I mean it was just one of those things because Leeds didn't deserve that. Leeds didn't deserve that at all. They didn't deserve to lose. They didn't deserve to lose in that fashion. They'd had a really long. The fans had had a really long journey down. They stuck behind their team, and then they had delays on the motorway going back. So it was a disastrous day all round for them. But it was, I mean, it's just one of those freak goals. But when you saw Darlow save when he tips it over the bar, and then you saw his save from Wilson, you just knew it was going to either be a howling mistake or a complete worldie because there was nothing between the teams. If you looked at them, Ash, right, you wouldn't be able to say which team had been in the Premier League for 4 consecutive seasons and which one hadn't.
No, yeah, no. It was really cancelled each other out football. So I said, some people called it boring and it was dire football. It wasn't great. The quality wasn't great, right? But the main reason why the quality wasn't great is because both teams were just sort of nulling each other out, and you don't really get that happen much in the Premier League.
I think it was our attitude was bad, and Leeds just, as you've already, I think might have been AJ pointed out, Leeds just don't have the offensive firepower.
Leeds came to get a point. Leeds came to get a point and almost
nothing wrong with that.
It's just what it is.
They worked really hard and they were very solid in the middle, but they can't go to the bench and they can't change things. They're not gonna. Like I said in the previous show, Ash and I have talked about this. We've been frightened of Fulham getting into a shootout. Leeds definitely can't afford to, get into shootouts. They just can't. They just can't.
I feel overall, we got the 3 points. It's great to get the first 3 points of the season. We're exceptionally lucky to get it, and it is one of those ones where I almost feel sorry for Leeds fans, but then you remember they're Leeds fans. So like that's where it ends, isn't it? But let's finish this how we always finish this and pick a man of the match and some honourable mentions, please. Drew, I'll start with you, mate. Can I have a couple of honourable mentions and your man of the match, please?
Honourable mentions. Thought Anderson was solid. I thought Anderson was solid, and so was Bassey, especially as an agent has already pointed out. Sess is just no left back. But Sess had a really good covering tackle in the second half where where they got through and he came across and snuffed it out. Tete was Tete. I mean, he was exceptional. Outside of that, until Kevin showed up, there really wasn't. I mean, he was the light. He was the light in a very, very dark display. So, and I know he didn't play the whole game, but he definitely made a difference, irrespective of what I said about the impact of Traore. Kevin definitely lit up the whole ground, so I'm going to give it to him. Welcome to Fulham, Kev.
I think it's a fair shout. And AJ, how about yourself, mate? Honourable mentions and your man of the match, please.
Honourable mentions go to Cess. He put in a shift, despite again being out of position, in my opinion. Lukic got up and down the pitch well, especially once there was a clear threat from Adama and Kevin in delivering balls into the box. I don't expect Sasha Lukic to be the one trying to get on the end of those balls, but the fact he constantly is, and then the next second you look, he's back in midfield, I have to applaud it. But my man of the match and as much as I enjoyed Kevin's performance, my man of the match goes to the only Premier League quality player I saw for more than 15 minutes, and that's Kenny Tete. He made their offense look absolutely ridiculous. There's a point where he picks up the ball from a long ball, drops it down, controls it, turns his man, and then is 2-on-1 and just tucks it round the corner and goes on the inside, and it's just beautiful stuff. His level of composure is just if he was 3-4 years younger, he'd be at a different club, frankly. He has to be my man of the match.
There's no argument for me, really. I think for me, my honourable mentions, you've mentioned everyone, and Anderson was outstanding. I think that the Anderson we're seeing so far at the beginning of this season is not the Anderson we had halfway through last season. There's clearly something's clicking a bit better there than there was at the end of last season. He's definitely gone back up to the level of defender we know he is. Kenny Tete was outstanding, as he always is, and you're absolutely right in the sense of everything he had to do, he did so well, but he didn't have to do much because Leeds have next to nothing to offer. I thought Bernardo did well with the things he actually had to do. You know, a couple of decent saves, a couple of easier saves that sort of came directly at him. But for me, Kevin is the only man in the match because he completely changed us when he came on. And it's frustrating to give a man of the match to a player that only comes on in the 76th minute. But quite frankly, he completely changed the mood of the game. If he didn't come on at all, there would have been, 20,000 Fulham fans walking away from the ground yesterday, absolutely livid with the football they've just seen. And it is as simple.
Yeah.
It is as simple as that. He's the only one. He's the only one who had any real impetus going forward. He's the only one who gave us that element of surprise that sometimes you need in a game of football. So for me, it can only be him that can get our man in the match, really. Lads, thank you very much for joining me on this match review. This week, obviously, we have a new episode of the Fulham Women's Podcast out, hopefully before Wednesday, but we don't know. We're just trying to get that one confirmed. We will confirm that on our socials as soon as we can. And then we have the big preview coming up for the West London derby on Saturday when Fulham take on Brentford. So we'll have fun with that one coming up later on at the end of the week. So hope you all have a good week. Hope Fulham have put a bit of a pep in the step getting those first 3 points. Not really much more to say other than come on, you Whites.